As I pointed out when we were talking about the actual Vessel of Notion video, there were a few hidden video links hidden in it. There's also one linked at the end of Vessel of Notion, but that's not all of the hidden video content that can be found. So to make it easier, I'm going to go through these videos one by one and give you where each one could be found so you can find them yourselves. We'll start with the most easily accessible one of the hidden videos, as it's linked right there in the main video's end card, and so will probably be the first one most people view directly after finishing it. Dear Mary is similar visually to the video previously named Corruption Tape, which has now been renamed to Home Video. It again shows footage of what appears to be the exact same cabin in a snowy backdrop, with the image glitching in and out of sight. However, this time the footage of the cabin seems to be upside down. Over the footage is a series of what sounds like voice recordings left on an answer phone, and it seems by the same person who left the call to Ivan we hear at the end of Vessel of Notion. In it, we hear the man on the phone talking about an Elizabeth Mary they know, who works as an engineer but apparently has something wrong with them. We're told that she has an off-putting demeanour but handles herself with control despite this, and we get the impression that the voice on the phone is interested in her, maybe even a little attracted to her. Mary apparently begins staying later after work, spilling her thoughts on how stressed she was having to look after her young brother. The man on the phone ends the video by saying that he wanted to help her with that problem. In the description is a message encoded in Morse. Here's what it says when translated. Separating it out into individual lines, the conversation seems to go. So how was it, little Reds? How was it before, work was hell? How come? No family, all me. Oh, you're a great sister, I feel like you don't get that much credit. I try, it was hard, manipulation, hurt us. Thank you, again, for trying to help. But why be so scary about it? How else would I get your attention, Ivan? It's Ivan, K. This video is apparently part of a service that was once offered to have parents order special custom phone messages for children's birthdays of their favourite Woodland Pals character, who'd wish them a happy birthday. On screen we have a very simplistic depiction of Hare jumping around a hilled field on and off screen, saying a bunch of very disconnected quotes. He says a few things that sound as if Hopper is addressing Little Red, potentially taken from a cartoon. However, other things seem more disconnected, and halfway through a line, the cartoon vanishes and we see a brief video of a forested area as another voice speaks the rest of the line. It's just how it goes around here. I'd be careful though.
You don't want to end up like that Ivan guy, right? I'm just kidding. I probably shouldn't have said that.
Hopper then returns, and his final line, delivered from off screen, is one that talks about the pigs and how they don't know what's coming for them. The video continues on for a little longer, and right towards the end, Hopper hops back into view, but his face has been replaced by shadow. It's interesting to note that the forest we see briefly resembles the same shot of the forest we caught a brief glimpse of in the formerly named Corruption Tape, now named Home Video. In the description, after the quote from the phone message service, we have another Morse code message. I remember, I sent Tonya one of these, she always loved Gally. This video focuses on another character that's been confirmed to be Humming Humpty, a name of a character we'd seen credited in Vessel of Notion's credit, yet not actually seen or heard speak. Humming Humpty resembles the stereotypical Humpty Dumpty depiction and appears here holding the spoon with a face. Again, the character repeats a lot of lines that seem disconnected and random, some again addressing Little Red and sounding as if they'd come from a cartoon. He does make reference to being part of the Woodland Pals though, which helps place where he might come from specifically. His first line also sounds like something promotional for Marine Mania. However, it's the final lines that seem most interesting, as Humpty seems to be talking about how some doors don't lock and how anyone could come through, but then suddenly seems to be addressing someone specifically as he realises they didn't come in the way he'd expected.
The doors don't lock in there, so anyone can walk in at any time and just... Wait a minute, that's not how he got here, isn't it? No, he left a different way, even more brutal than the others.
He then goes on to talk about not trusting any pig or farm animal. In the description of the video, the uploader or someone talks about how much they disliked this character, calling them a walking liver failure. There is also another Morse code message that when translated reads... Again, when we separate it out into an actual conversation, where's the boy? Cartoon. You left him there? Safe for him. I've seen his art, he's so good. I hope he likes it there. Close to home. I want to go home too. I'm so sorry, Mary. Try harder. This is one of the 3 videos that are titled as Missing Scenes from the Woodland Pals cartoon, and one of 4 that exist to be found. The video is a short clip from the cartoon as the big character faces away from the camera towards the wall of a house with pictures of locks and galley hung upon it. The subtitles say, "Don't be scared, you lousy bear, put it in," which gives us the impression that the pig is currently bullying or trying to intimidate Locks into doing something he doesn't want to do. However, the most interesting part of the short clip is that about halfway through the image glitches up for a few frames, and one of those frames displays a similar wall picture of Red, wearing a party hat we've previously seen being worn by the boy in the upside down image. In the description is a message, this time in binary. When translated it reads, "I think Mary just wants to help. All those times she showed up, it was to protect me, to protect others. No wonder the tape was so corrupted, she was trying to warn me. I wish I can take her home, to that yellow house she talks about. The home video is the safest place for us, and we need to all get there. Good things take time though." This is numerically the second clip of the missing scenes linked in Vessel of Notion's on-screen links, yet the first one we get a link for. In the clip we see a hand in what appears to be a suit sleeve with a white rim around the cuff, or potentially a white shirt underneath. It holds out a brown paper bag and the subtitles underneath read, "It's done." Faintly visible on the paper bag are some marking, which once traced over seem to mostly just be crinkles of the bag, but towards the top seems to be a doodle of a bear's head, and this one bit here which seems to resemble the letter N capitalised. With the markings to its left it almost seems like somebody wrote Ivan on this bag, but I can't be certain of that. The audio consists of just one bit of very slowed down audio, which when sped up, I've got nothing. At 10 times the speed, it does sound like a female's voice, but since the original video is just 3 seconds long, the sped up clip lasts half a second if that, and so there's not much to hear as a result. In the description is another binary message, which when it is translated, "It hurts so bad. Eric has never been superstitious, but I hope he will at least try to understand what's happening. It would be cool if multiple people helped out. Like, he gathers a fan base or something, I don't know. I miss so much. I miss listening to podcasts and talking shit with JJ in the lunchroom. I miss the way Tanya would braid my hair during the lunch break, and that weird smell that came from the arcade machine. God, it's so cold." Final scene that can be accessed through a link in the Vessel of Notion video itself. This is numerically the 3rd missing scene of the Woodland Pals cartoon. And as a heads up, this one is actually visually horrifying, so please skip ahead to here if you'd rather not see it, or, I don't know, switch tabs or something. This clip is again another fairly short one, but it is the longest of the 3 from the on-screen links. It consists of a still frame of Little Red, but his face is covered in what appears to be old blood and gore, his mouth showing some realistic teeth, and his eyes have been replaced with realistic human eyes. These eyes are the only moving part of the video, as they slowly look towards the camera in a very creepy parallel to the 2 times in the past we've seen a cartoon Little Red look at the camera before the screen cuts away. Audio-wise, all we can hear is what sounds like deep, slow breathing, as if someone is finding it hard to actually take in and expel the air. However, since the sound slowed down, I sped it up, only to find that it sounds like help over and over. But it still sounded reversed, so I reversed it and... Poison. 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 Which sounds like somebody saying poison over and over. Again, there is a message in the description in binary, and this time translating it gives us a conversation. I thought I'd never see you again. I wanted to apologise. I want to help you, do the things you do and help others. No, Ivan. Mary, please, let me help you. I can help. I can help us. Help you and Hayden get to the home video. Just like how we got here. Not easy. I know it's not easy, that's why I'm doing it, so you don't have to. Naive. Well, if you want to take me with you, I want to be somewhere else. I'm in pain here. Please tell me there's a place better than this. Introduction tape. Eric is there. The main visual of this video is a pixelated game sprite of Locks standing in a field with hills behind him. It begins to move around the screen as distorted glitchy music and sounds play. Then he begins to move around more frantically as the colours of the screen flash yellow and red, light and dark, and the distorted glitchy sound makes way for a slowed down cry. Speeding the video audio up, we get this. We know now that the end of the video is the sound of children, but also that hidden amongst the glitchy distorted track is a voice saying something. Unfortunately, as with minor prior instances, it's impossible to make out what the voice might be saying. In the video description is a Morse code message that when translated reads, "Where to now, Mary? We wait. For what? Mary, please stop doing that. Mary? Hello? Mary, please stop leaving me, it hurts here, I can't keep living here. Mary! 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 Mary!" This video is a lot longer than most of the hidden videos, and it's also the hardest to find, needing a few more steps to reach. Because it requires a password and the title is hard to say, I'm going to be calling it the password video from now on. The audio of this video seems to tell us a story that is similar to that of Little Red Riding Hood, the character we know Little Red was apparently named for, but with Red playing the part of the titular character instead. Little Red asks his mother to go visit his sister, but is tricked by a pig who plays the role the wolf played in the original tale, who pretends to be Red's sister, seemingly to get some of the porridge. Halfway through the video though, this audio is overlapped and drowned out by what sounds like a guided narration for working on animatronics. We know that the sister mentions something about, assumably, Red missing a party, and that the pig uses thoughts and fireworks to distract the sister before donning what is described as a uniform and adding a nicely stitched employee hat. Most of this video plays out with two different videos at a time overlapping with each other, switching rapidly between the two. The one that stays for most of the video is that of what looks like a short animation reel of the cartoon Little Red we saw back in Vessel of Notion in the bottom left watching the Marine Mania advert with us. The reel, which is played a few times through, shows us Little Red walking through a forest, switching between the calm pose and the more dynamic mouth open pose we've already seen. The second clip with which the reel is overlaid changes though. The first clip is of the pixelated game sprite of Lox again, with the board to his right spelling out the story of the game and what is happening in this scene. We read that Lox is awoken from a nap to find that his porridge is gone from the picnic basket he has with him. The text then changes to give us a quest, in which Lox asks us to find something. The text underneath this question tells us that Lox should have asked us to find his porridge for him, but the text instead reads, "Can you help me find Eric?" The second clip that gets overlaid is a close-up of a very chibi or simplistic style cartoon of Little Red's head with a single pointed tooth. It almost seems to resemble a mascot style version of Little Red that someone would use for a child-aimed product. Beyond that, I'm not sure. The third clip seems to be a handheld video that someone shot of them opening up something full of mechanics inside. The camera pans up slightly for a few seconds and we see something shaped like a chunky vertical column covered in faux fur. The camera then goes back into the mechanics and zooms in on a particular part, which looks like an electrical chip or else something with some switches. This footage goes dark for a bit, then cuts back in and we see a hand depressing some of the switches before withdrawing. This is the point that the story narration is drowned out by the instructional video. There is then no secondary clip for a little bit, but before the fourth one fades in, something appears briefly in the secondary space, something that resembles a pair of very sad eyes. The fourth clip then appears with yet another rendition of what appears to be Little Red. His head and eyes are giant, his body small and he wears his hat. He stands in a room with a pale blue wall with detailing and a whited out area to his left that almost looks like light pouring in from a doorway. This Little Red looks a lot like a child's drawing, coloured in with felt tip pens and much more developed than the doodles we've seen before now. It's also possible that it might come from a game. The final secondary clip is of a black and white image. On the left is a Little Red animatronic and on the right is a boy wearing a party hat, but red blood pours from his eyes, nose and mouth. Eventually the video shows just this last clip fully, and red text is placed on top of the screen above the red animatronic. He took my box and put his toys in. I don't like these toys. In the description is one last Morse code message, which when translated reads, "I'm so sorry Hayden, I'm so starter. Just keep drawing baby, we'll be out one day."